Hello and welcome back to the Bullit Media Collective YouTube channel. I watched IMDB's worst rated movie, and I seriously regret my choices. So I saw 2008's Disaster movie. IMDb has it as their worst rated film. Rotten Tomatoes has it almost at the bottom. Pretty sure Letterboxd does too. It's bad, okay? And that is a known fact. Going into it, I didn't know what to expect. It is one of those like satire style films, like Scary Movie, this genre. However, I don't know if I would consider it a satire because it's not really satirizing anything. Ideally, if it was satirizing a disaster movie, they would be like playing on tropes from disaster films and all that. But instead, they just like emulate other pop culture moments or like celebrities or movies and just put them into the disaster movie. Not good. But let's just get into it. I'm going to explain what happens. This way you never have to watch it. So the movie opens with an asteroid hitting Earth, casually, with some like Marvel-ass music and a really ugly title card. It is 10,001 BC, because obviously, and there's this cave person and they're running away from some ominous creature, whatever, and then they get stomped on, but they survive. But when they end up face first in a pile of shit for the jokes. So he keeps running, but then all of a sudden he gets whacked by some guy with the worst facial hair you've ever seen in your entire life. But he's not a cave person. He's like a wrestler, gladiator, right? Because that makes sense. And then they start having this like duel with those, those like double-ended marshmallow stick situations. Thing is, usually when you play that game where you're trying to hit someone and knock them off, usually they're on like a platform or something, so balance plays a part, but they just play this on the ground. Yeah, that ends. Cave person keeps running and encounters Amy Winehouse, but it's not Amy Winehouse, but her name is Amy, but she's also a saber-toothed tiger. She mutters some sort of gibberish, but she does say something important. Is anything important in this movie? No. But she says that August 29th, 2008 is like the day the world's gonna end. Coincidentally, that is Liam Payne's birthday. I don't think it is a coincidence, actually. However, it turns out it's all just a dream. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. However, he turns to look at the calendar, and not only is it August 29th, but there's also a skull on that day, so it's like, I think he maybe already knew that. He didn't need his dream to like subconsciously tell him. Anyway, he's our main character. His name is Will. He's in bed with his girlfriend, who is Amy as well, but not Amy Winehouse. Her name is just Amy. But also Flava Flav is in the bed, because comedy. And that afternoon is Will's sweet 16 birthday party. No, he is not 16, don't worry. It would actually work because usually they cast 16-year-olds that look like this. But no, he is 25 years old. He just never had a sweet 16 birthday party, so he wants one. And this party is insane, and not in like a woo, it's a rager, like crazy. No, it's actually insane because there's so much going on and none of it matters. Like, we see there's a lot of references, but none of them mean anything. And like, none of them are funny. Nothing in this movie is funny. But I'm just gonna list who we see because I don't even have time to explain them. So, there's Girls Gone Wild flashing, but it's Girls Gone Harry, like Harry Girls Gone Wild, I don't know. There's Dr. Phil, but he's a pervert. No Country for Old Men, so Javier Bardem's character. Kim Kardashian is in it, but her name is just Lisa. Okay. Superbad, but instead of McLovin, his name is McLover. Juno is there, and Michael Cera's character, who is in Juno. And then there is a really, really long High School Musical scene where they sing like a parody of We're All in This Together, and Will is Troy. There's also the Jonas Brothers, Justin Timberlake, and Jessica Simpson. Thing is, none of them, it doesn't make any sense, because it's not even, like, a subtle nod, like, oh, if you, like, are good with knowing, like, celebrities or movies or whatever, then maybe you could guess who it is. Like, they literally are like, oh my gosh, it's the Jonas Brothers. It is at the end of We're All in This Together that there is a boom. And that's finally when we get our disaster. Well, not that the movie wasn't already a disaster, but that's when we get, like, the destruction of the earth. Also, Juno just drinks while being pregnant. Don't do that. A group of them go outside, and there's, like, meteors falling, and people are, like, running, and it's chaos. And a meteor hits Hannah Montana and kills her. But even though she's dead, she's still, like, promoting her stuff, because capitalism. And then she takes off her wig, and she's Miley Cyrus, and everyone freaks out. So our disaster gang is Will, Lisa, Calvin, and Juno, whatever. Random Hancock moment, does not even matter. So there's an ice storm, so the gang finds shelter in some, like, storage facility, and they encounter the Sex and the City ladies. And here we have one of, like, the most uncomfortable scenes I've ever watched in my entire life. So for some reason they fight, and Juno and Carrie scrap, okay? But then Juno starts, like, squirting her with breast milk, and then her baby's foot comes out of her womb and slaps Carrie in the face. Yeah. The audience was silent. Like, it wasn't funny, it wasn't, like, laughing because you're uncomfortable, just, like, you're kind of like, who made this happen? And then randomly, Will becomes Jumper and falls onto the sword of Prince Caspian, but turns out it was just some random dream / fantasy that he had. But it doesn't make any sense, because it's not like these characters are from disaster movies. Like, there's the correlation's not correlating. For some reason they're like, okay, bye, we're gonna go back outside, I'm sure the ice storm is done. And they're like, yeah, it's fine, except now there's body parts falling from the sky. Amy calls Will because she's scared, and she's at the museum, which is where she works, at a museum. And she was like, I'm gonna go protect the artifacts, like, whatever. And Will confesses that he was an idiot for not, like, telling her that he loves her and how he feels. But then he says that he loves her on the phone, and she tries to say it back, being like, I love you, like, whatever. And then, there's an AT&T ad that says that, like, make sure that your signal's good, because her signal sucks, so she can't say anything to him. So he's like, I love you, and she's like, but then he doesn't hear anything, and then he calls her a stuck-up bitch. Despite that, he gets worried, and he's like, gang, we gotta go and save her, I'm worried about her. But then Lisa gets squished by a meteor. So they're on their way, and the princess and prince from Enchanted crawl out of the sewer. And because Lisa's gone, Calvin's in the need for a new woman, naturally. So he fights the prince in a dance battle for the princess. And it's actually just so hilarious, because this dance sequence goes on for way too long. It's also on a separate stage. But you can just see, if you watch it, you can just see, don't watch it. They don't even try to be subtle about the stunt actors or, like, the professional dancers that they have doing it. At one point, you can tell that it's just a man in a dress. Like, they're not subtle at all. The prince loses, so the princess joins the gang, replacing Lisa. And then there's a tornado, because disaster movie. When there's a tornado, they run into Iron Man, Hellboy, and the Hulk, all of which get smushed by falling cows. Then they go to another warehouse to try to get out of that storm, and they encounter Alvin and the Chipmunks. At first they sing, and it's cool, but then they attack, and eventually they eat Juno. So, of course, as you can probably guess, they go back to the street, because they only like to stay in one area for a little bit. So they go back to the street, and Batman is there, telling people to evacuate. Batman dies. He gets dragged away. It doesn't matter. But then they get into Speed Racer's car, where Michael Jackson is in the trunk. Like, none of it, just, this all, the fact that I wrote all this down as a script, like, this is not real. What? And then they get to the museum. So Amy is, like, underneath a statue because one fell on her, but then they rescue her. Oh my gosh, thank goodness. And they're like, we gotta get out of here. But she's like, no, wait, I have something. And she pulls the crystal skull out of her vagina. Okay, this would be the nod to Night in the Museum, but she's like, we must return it to the altar, like, all the creatures have come to life, blah, 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 blah. But then Beowulf tries to stop Amy and Will, and there's, like, the bit is that Beowulf is gay, but, like, closeted. It's not funny, but it's 2008, so I guess it was supposed to be. And then Kung Fu Panda attacks Calvin and the Princess. Yeah. Like, there's all... Every time I say these things, they're just like... It happens, and I don't have a reason. It just... They decided that was part of the movie. Anyway, Will and Amy get to this special room. It's very much like the altar, Indiana Jones, etc. Indiana Jones is even there. And he is supposed to be Will's father that he never met or, like, never knew. And he's, like, offering some sage advice, like, Will, like, I wish I settled down with a good lady, a good girl. And then, of course, Will and Amy look at each other and they're like, oh my gosh, should we? So yeah, they put the skull on the altar, and then the love guru marries Will and Amy. And then there's a song that is too long that I didn't even watch because I could not be bothered. So yeah, that is what happens in the entire movie. Never watch it. I don't understand how it was made. Like, everything about it is just so horrible. And I've seen bad movies or movies that are bad, but you're watching and you're like, okay, like, it's funny because it's bad. This is just bad because, like, not a single thing makes sense, but a lot of thought was clearly put into it. So it's like, imagine if they, like, took, like, one writing class on, like, what satire is, or a comedy class, or, like, I don't know, had someone look over the script, or, like, only had references to actual disaster movies. Like, I'm thinking of so many things that they didn't touch on Cloverfield, they didn't touch on Armageddon. Like, there's so many things that they were missing that could have been disaster movies. So yeah, if you ever hate someone and want to recommend a movie to them, tell them to watch this. Anyway, like, subscribe, follow our TikTok, our Instagram, and I'll see you guys when I see you. Which I guess